AITA for refusing to take care of my sister's newborn because of her past behavior and the mess it would bring into my life. I, 29M, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 26F. Growing up, she was the quintessential wild child, rebellious, reckless, and constantly making bad decisions. I was the responsible older brother who always tried to keep her grounded and help her out when she got into trouble. But over the years, I've started to distance myself because I realized that I can't fix her or save her from herself. To give you some context, Emily has had multiple issues with addiction, dating terrible people, and generally being unreliable. Our parents tried everything, but eventually gave up. I did my best to be the stable figure in her life, but it's exhausting when every time you turn around, she's asking for money, a place to stay, or help cleaning up another mess she made. I also have my own life and responsibilities, a decent job, my own apartment, a steady relationship, and plans to start saving for a house. I'm not wealthy, but I'm comfortable and independent. About 6 months ago, Emily called me out of the blue and told me she was pregnant. I won't lie, my first reaction was worry. I wasn't sure if she was ready to be a mother, especially considering her history with substance abuse and unstable living situations. She assured me she was sober now, had a stable job, and wanted to turn her life around. I wanted to believe her, so I cautiously offered support. Fast forward to now, Emily gave birth 2 weeks ago. She reached out asking if I could help by watching the baby while she went back to work or handled errands. She made it sound like it would only be for a few hours a couple of days a week. I was hesitant, but said I'd think about it. When I asked her where the baby would be kept, what she needed help with, and how she planned to manage the logistics, she was vague and kept changing the subject. Yesterday, she came over with the baby, saying she had to run an emergency errand and needed me to watch her for just a bit. The baby's room was a disaster. Diapers everywhere, leftover fast food on the floor, clothes scattered, and the baby looked tired and fussy. I helped as much as I could, but was overwhelmed. I asked her if this was going to be the norm, and she admitted she was still figuring things. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for telling my wife that I won't re-interview for the role of dad. My wife, 32F, and I, 34M, have been married for 8 years, together for 10. We have a 7-year-old daughter, Ellie, who is the absolute light of my life. I work in software engineering, and my wife is a middle school teacher. Now, I love my wife. She's smart, dedicated, and an amazing teacher. But she's also someone who thrives on structure, progress tracking, and performance evaluation. Think charts for everything, meal plans that look like military ops, and our home calendar looks like a war room wall. That personality works great for her job, and even in some aspects of parenting. But over the last 6 months, she's gotten really into parenting podcasts, parenting blogs, and some online mom communities that focus heavily on intentional parenting, attachment theory, and what she calls radical parental self-awareness. It all sounds good in theory. Who doesn't want to be a better parent? It started small. She asked if we could have weekly check-ins about how we're doing as parents. I was fine with it. I figured we'd talk over coffee on Sunday mornings. But then she brought a spreadsheet with columns and scores. She was rating us on categories like emotional attunement, discipline consistency, and supportiveness of independent play. At first, I laughed, thinking it was kind of tongue-in-cheek, but she was dead serious. She asked me to rate her too, so I did lightly, mostly 4s and 5s. She gave me some 3s, a couple 2s, and then started citing examples. One was because I told Ellie, not now, when she asked to paint while I was on a work call. That became the new Sunday routine. Every week, we'd evaluate our parenting. I didn't love it, but I went along with it because she said it helped her feel aligned and connected. I gave my thoughts, sometimes gently challenged hers, but mostly nodded and moved on. Then about a month ago, she said she wanted to evolve the process. She proposed that every quarter, We each submit a parenting growth report to each other, not only evaluating ourselves, but also suggesting areas of improvement for the other person. She wanted it to include real examples, links to relevant parenting articles or studies, and even suggested adding action plans. I told her that I wasn't comfortable doing that and it felt forced and weird. She said that growth only happens when we're open to feedback. I replied that feedback in the moment is one thing, but writing a report like I'm submitting an employee review was too much. She was upset, said she felt like I wasn't taking our roles as parents seriously, and she ended up writing hers anyway and gave it to me. It was 6 pages long. 6 pages. She had comments like, has made noticeable progress in de-escalation during conflict, but still defaults to avoidance at times, and needs improvement in collaborative problem-solving with child during morning routines. She even gave me a rating, 3.2 out of 5. I honestly felt humiliated, like I was being graded in my own house. I told her I wasn't going to write one and didn't want to keep doing this performance review style parenting. That being present, loving, consistent, and doing my best every day should be enough. That I didn't need to be scored or ranked to know if I was a good dad. She said that mindset is stagnant and emotionally complacent. She asked me, point blank, if I would let a software engineer stagnate and not get reviewed for years, would I accept that in my profession? I told her that being a dad isn't a job with a boss. It's a relationship. It's messy and human and can't be condensed into a quarterly report. She told me I was being dismissive, closed off to growth, and selfish for not participating. I told her I wouldn't re-interview every 3 months for the role of dad, and that if she couldn't see my parenting in our daily life, a report wasn't going to help. She ended the conversation by saying, I guess I'll just have to grow alone. Since then, things have been tense. We're still cordial, but distant. She's still doing parenting reflections, solo, and journaling about it. I've caught her muttering things under her breath when I parent differently than she would. Stuff like, guess that's a missed opportunity for emotional labeling. It's gotten to the point where I feel like I can't breathe around her when it comes to parenting. The thing is, I do care about being a good dad. I read with Ellie every night, help her with homework, plan fun outings, listen to her, and talk her through her emotions. I just don't think I need a performance review system to prove that. But part of me wonders if I'm the one being inflexible. Maybe I should be more open to systems if they help her feel connected. But another part of me feels AITA for not letting my husband surprise guest stay in our house and making them get a hotel. So this happened last weekend, and it has completely blown up in my family. I, 32F, have been married to my husband Jake, 35M, for 6 years. We have a very comfortable life together. No kids yet, but trying, and we both work demanding jobs. He's in finance, I'm in healthcare. I'm also a major planner. I like knowing what's going on, who's coming over when, how long they're staying, dietary stuff. Everything. I don't think I'm controlling, just organized and efficient. Jake is more spontaneous and go with the flow, but we've always balanced each other well. Well, not this time. So, last weekend was my only free weekend in over a month. I had just finished a grueling 12-day stretch at the hospital. I had blocked off the weekend to rest, clean the house at my pace, maybe get a massage, and do some baking. No socializing, no obligations. Jake knew this. We even joked the week before about how I was going to live in pajamas for 48 hours straight. He said he'd protect the fortress and make sure I got my peaceful recharge. Friday evening comes. I get home, toss on my comfiest robe, and start my chill ritual. I'm halfway into a glass of wine and an episode of Great British Bake Off when I hear a car door. Then the doorbell rings. Jake yells from the kitchen, "Babe, can you get that?" I'm already annoyed because why would I get the door when I'm clearly in chill mode? I open the door and standing there is a woman I've never seen before, maybe late 20s, holding a duffel bag and a big purse. She smiles and says, "Hi, you must be Emily. I'm Renee, Jake's friend from college." I'm completely thrown. Jake appears behind me grinning like a moron and says, "Surprise. Renee's in town for the weekend. I told her she could crash with us." I look at him and then back at her. My brain cannot compute what's happening. I step aside to be polite, but I'm in shock. Renee walks in, starts kicking off her shoes, and chatting like we're old friends. Jake acts like this is all normal. Once we're alone in the kitchen, I ask Jake what the hell is going on. He says Renee is an old friend from his college improv group. Since when is he into improv? She's in town for a workshop, and hotels were expensive, so he offered our guest room. I remind him I specifically said I didn't want any visitors that weekend. He shrugs and says, "Come on, she's only here 2 nights. She'll be out during the day." I was livid, but I didn't want to make a scene in front of a guest. I barely interacted with her Friday night, made an excuse to go to bed early, and didn't come out until she left the next morning. I spent Saturday fuming. Jake tried to smooth things over by saying Renee is low maintenance and would be gone all day and I wouldn't even notice her. I told him this wasn't about her. It was about him completely ignoring my boundaries and ruining the one weekend I had to decompress. Saturday evening, I was determined not to be passive-aggressive anymore. When Renee came back, I politely told her I was sorry for the confusion, but that I wasn't informed about her visit and it had been a misunderstanding. I offered to help her find a nearby hotel and even offered to pay for one night. She looked super embarrassed and kept saying, "I'm so sorry, I thought you knew." I told her it wasn't her fault. Jake, on the other hand, lost it. He pulled me aside and whispered furiously that I was being rude, that Renee didn't have money for a hotel, and that I was making everyone uncomfortable. I told him he made me uncomfortable by springing this on me. He accused me of being inflexible and selfish. In the end, Renee said she felt uncomfortable staying where she wasn't wanted and got a rideshare to a hotel. I did pay for her room. Jake slept in the guest room that night. Since then, he's barely talked to me. He says I humiliated him and kicked out a guest like some kind of mean girl's villain. His sister texted me saying I was dramatic and that guests make life interesting and I should loosen up. My mom is on my side, but says I probably should have just let her stay and had the fight later. I'm still so angry. This was about more than a surprise guest. It was about being disrespected, having my space invaded without warning, and being treated like a background character in my own home. For what it's worth, Renee was polite and seemed genuinely confused. I don't blame her. I blame Jake for not even asking me. When I asked him why he didn't tell me in advance, he literally said, "Because I knew you'd say no." So, he knew I wouldn't be okay with it and did it anyway. We're still not speaking much. He thinks I ruined a weekend with an old friend. I think he ruined a weekend I desperately needed for myself. So, AITA? AITA for telling my sister she can't move into our dad's house because he left it to me? My dad passed away 6 months ago. It was sudden, a heart attack at 63. We were both very close to him. I, 32M, and my sister, 28F, Emily, were devastated. We were both there for the funeral, and it was a rough time, but one thing that surprised everyone was the will. My dad left his house to me. Just me. It was clearly stated, I leave the house and all its contents to my son, Ryan. He left Emily a generous amount of money, $75,000. He had no other major assets aside from a small life insurance policy that split equally between us. The house is a beautiful 4-bedroom place in a quiet neighborhood. It's fully paid off, worth around $600,000. I was shocked he left it only to me, but I wasn't about to argue with a legal document he clearly prepared with an attorney. It was dated only a year before his death, so not old or outdated. Emily was upset when she found out, but she didn't argue right away. She stayed quiet for a while, maybe processing everything. I offered to split some of the smaller sentimental things in the house with her, like photo albums, his old guitar, a few things she had emotional ties to, and she accepted that. Fast forward to about a month ago. Emily calls me and says she's breaking up with her boyfriend of 4 years, who she lived with. She doesn't have a backup place to go and asks if she can move into Dad's house temporarily. She said she just needs time to get back on her feet. Here's the thing. I had already moved in. I lived in an apartment across town before, but I moved into Dad's house shortly after he passed. It didn't feel right to leave it empty, and it was a place full of memories. I've been slowly fixing it up, repainting, working on the yard, trying to keep the place alive. My plan was to live here permanently. It's a much better space than my old place, and honestly, it feels like home. I told Emily that I was really sorry for what she's going through, but I didn't think it would work for her to move in. The house isn't set up for two adults to live together unless it's intentional. She'd have to sleep in the room next to mine. We'd be sharing a kitchen and bathroom, and it just didn't feel like a good arrangement. I also work from home full-time, and the idea of having someone else around constantly, especially during a breakup, didn't seem ideal. She was quiet at first, then started crying. She said she had nowhere else to go, and that Dad would have never turned her away. I told her I agreed. Dad probably would have let her stay here, but the situation is different now. It's not Dad's house anymore, it's mine. She hung up on me. A few hours later, I started getting texts from her friends. Then our aunt called. Apparently, Emily told everyone I kicked her out of our dad's house and left her homeless while I hoarded everything for myself. People are acting like I stole the place from her. Even some cousins messaged me asking how I could do that to my own blood. I told a few of them the truth. Dad left the house to me, and Emily got money. That if I let her move in temporarily, it would likely turn into something long-term, and I didn't feel comfortable with that. Some understood. Others said I was being selfish and splitting the family over real estate. To add more context, Emily has a history of overstaying her welcome. She moved in with me for a month in college and stayed 6. Same with another cousin's house a few years ago. She doesn't pay rent, barely contributes, and often expects others to handle things while she gets her life in order. That was another big reason I said no. I didn't believe she'd move out anytime soon. Last week, she posted a long rant on Facebook about family betrayal. And while she didn't name me, it was obvious. Since then, more extended family members have reached out to guilt-trip me. One uncle even suggested I sell the house and split it, as if that's what Dad intended. But I don't think I'm wrong here. Dad made his decision. I didn't manipulate him. I didn't even know the house would go to me until the will was read. And I do feel bad for Emily. I don't want her to be homeless. But she's not. She has friends, she has money from the inheritance, and she even has our mom. They're not close, but she could go there temporarily. Still, the guilt is eating at me. I love my dad. I don't want to ruin my relationship with my sister over a house. But I also don't want to be forced into living with someone who's unreliable, messy, and emotionally draining just to keep the peace. So, AITA for not letting my sister move into the house her dad left me. AITA for telling my wife that I'm not going to pretend her best friend didn't ruin our wedding. My wife, Alyssa, and I got married this past June after 4 years together. We had a relatively small wedding, around 80 guests, and paid for about 60% of it ourselves, with some help from our parents. It was important to us that the day felt personal and intimate. We spent a lot of time planning, especially because we didn't hire a professional planner. Alyssa has a best friend, Rachel, who has been in her life since high school. They were roommates in college, and they're the type of friends who talk every day, send TikToks back and forth, and have matching tattoos. I've never had a problem with Rachel personally, but I've always found her a little much. She dominates conversations, drinks a lot, and seems to have a flair for drama. But it's not my place to interfere, so I always kept things polite and distant. The first crack happened during our engagement party. Rachel got drunk and made a very awkward toast that basically amounted to I never thought Alyssa would settle down, and especially not with someone like Opie. She laughed afterward like it was a joke, but a few people looked uncomfortable. I let it go because Alyssa swore she didn't mean it that way. Then there were the bridal shower and bachelorette party issues. Rachel took over both events and ignored everything Alyssa had asked for. She booked a trip to Miami instead of the cozy weekend in Asheville my wife wanted. Alyssa was clearly upset, but she never confronted her. She told me it was easier to let Rachel have her way than argue. Now, to the wedding day. Rachel was the maid of honor, which Alyssa insisted on. I had no issue with that, even though I quietly lobbied for her sister. On the day of, Rachel showed up late to the venue, hungover. The makeup artist had to rush her, and she made comments about how weddings are such an expensive way to show insecurity. Again, everyone just kind of ignored her. But during the reception, she crossed a serious line. There was an open mic moment where people could share stories or say something meaningful. Rachel got up and gave this 6-minute speech that was basically a monologue about her and Alyssa's friendship. It included how Alyssa once told her she didn't believe in marriage and how she never thought she'd end up being someone's wife. She even made a joke about how Alyssa and she once kissed in college for practice and winked at me. It was so wildly inappropriate that the entire room went silent. Alyssa looked like she wanted to disappear. Her mom later told me she almost stood up and yanked the mic away, but she didn't want to cause a scene. Afterward, I pulled Rachel aside and told her she was out of line and that she needed to apologize to Alyssa. She laughed in my face and said, "You're lucky I didn't tell the real stories." I told Alyssa that night I didn't want Rachel in our lives anymore. Alyssa told me I was overreacting and that Rachel just gets nervous and weird in formal settings. I let it go, again, for the sake of peace. Fast forward 4 months. Alyssa and I have been doing well, but every time Rachel comes up, I feel my stomach turn. A few nights ago, Alyssa mentioned that Rachel was planning a girls' weekend and asked if I'd be okay with her going. I said yes, but added that I hoped Rachel wouldn't pull another stunt like she did at the wedding. Alyssa sighed and said, "Can we please stop bringing that up? You act like she ruined the whole day when it was just a weird speech." That triggered something in me. I told her flat out, it wasn't just a weird speech. It was humiliating. She made our wedding about herself. She embarrassed you, disrespected me, and tanked the vibe of what should have been a joyful day. I'm not going to pretend she didn't ruin it just so you can feel comfortable keeping her around. Alyssa got really quiet. She said I was being cruel and forcing her to choose between me and her oldest friend. I told her I wasn't making her choose, but that I wasn't going to smile and play along like Rachel didn't nuke the biggest day of our lives. Now she's been distant for a few days. I've tried to talk to her, but she keeps saying she needs space to think. Her sister texted me and said I shouldn't have forced the issue because Rachel is part of the package, and I knew that from the beginning. So now I'm here, wondering if I've totally misread the situation. I know weddings aren't always perfect. I know people say dumb things sometimes. But I can't shake the feeling that Rachel deliberately made that day about herself and is continuing to disrespect our marriage by acting like it's no big deal. Alyssa thinks I'm holding a grudge. I think I'm just setting a boundary. AITA for refusing to let my wife's parents meet our baby after what they did at our wedding. So this situation has been building for years, and now it's exploded, and my wife and I are barely speaking. I need to know if I'm being unreasonable or if I've been pushed too far. I, 34M, have been married to my wife, 33F, Lena, for 3 years. We've been together since college. She comes from a very close-knit, wealthy family who are intense, to put mildly. Her parents, let's call them Rick and Mary, are the kind of people who believe in family legacy and all that. Country club types who can be nice to your face while absolutely destroying you behind the scenes. I come from a middle-class background. My parents are divorced, my dad works in HVAC, and my mom's a school teacher. Lena's parents have never outright said they thought I wasn't good enough, but their actions screamed it. They were always polite but cold. Whenever I was around, they made these subtle digs, like when they gifted Lena a car and handed me a brochure for professional etiquette classes as a joke. But Lena loved me, and we made it work. When we got engaged, the real issues started. First, they insisted on paying for the wedding, but with strings. I didn't want their money, but Lena convinced me it would be rude to say no, and she promised to keep them in check. Well, they completely hijacked the planning. We had a venue we loved, small, scenic, meaningful to us, but they called it too rustic and moved everything to some hotel ballroom they liked. They also accidentally forgot to include my mom on the invite list until I noticed. I kid you not. Then there was the wedding day. They changed the seating chart without telling us so that their friends would be in prime spots, and my family was shoved to the back. My dad was seated at a table labeled Other Guests. When I brought it up to Lena, she brushed it off as a simple mix-up. I tried to just enjoy the day, but then during the reception, Rick made a speech. Unplanned. He gets up, grabs the mic, and goes on this 5-minute tangent about how proud he is of Lena and how sometimes we make choices that don't make sense to everyone, but love is about compromise, and how with enough support, even those from different walks of life can find common ground. Then he raises a toast to a future filled with growth and understanding. It was a slap in the face. People were shifting uncomfortably. My dad walked out. I was fuming. After the wedding, I told Lena I needed space from her parents. She apologized, said she didn't know he'd say that, but also defended him, saying he was trying to be supportive in his own way. I didn't buy it. We agreed to limit contact with them for a while. Fast forward to this year. Lena and I had our first baby, a girl, in June. We were over the moon, but I still hadn't forgiven her parents. When Lena told them I didn't want them visiting at the hospital, they flipped. They said I was holding their granddaughter hostage and that I was punishing them for old misunderstandings. They tried to send gifts and even showed up at our house uninvited a week after we got home. I told them to leave. Now here's where it really blew up. We were planning a small welcome gathering for family and friends when our daughter was 8 weeks old. Lena wanted to invite her parents. I said no. She asked me what it would take to move on, and I told her a genuine apology from Rick and Mary, acknowledging what they did at our wedding and how they've treated me over the years. I wasn't asking for groveling, just honesty. She told them. They responded with a letter, not an apology. A letter. It was 2 pages of "We're sorry you felt that way," and "It was never our intention to upset you," and how sometimes sensitivity can be a barrier to building strong family ties. Basically, they gaslit the hell out of me while pretending to be polite. I read it, tore it in half, and said they weren't welcome in our house or around our daughter until they can show real remorse. Lena broke down crying and accused me of making her choose between her parents and her own family. She's been cold with me ever since, saying I'm punishing her for things outside her control and that our daughter deserves to know her grandparents. I told her our daughter will have plenty of love from people who respect our family. Lena says I'm creating long-term damage by cutting off her side of the family, and that I'm being petty over wedding drama that happened years ago. I say this isn't about the wedding. It's about years of disrespect, and I won't let that poison into our child's life. If they can't be decent to me, they don't get access to my daughter. So now it's tense. Lena has been sleeping in the guest room with the baby, saying she needs space. She hinted she might take the baby to see her parents without telling me. I said that would be a betrayal of trust I'm not sure we'd come back from. AITA for standing my ground? AITA for making my wife choose between our marriage and her platonic soulmate? I, 34M, have been married to my wife Lily, 32F, for 5 years, together for 8. For the most part, our relationship has been solid. We're best friends, great partners, and we've been talking about starting a family in the next year or two. But there's always been one thing that's bothered me, and it's reached a breaking point. His name is Micah, 35M. Lily and Micah met in college and have been inseparable since. According to both of them, they've never dated, never kissed, never even had a drunken hookup. Lily calls him her platonic soulmate and says their bond transcends romantic or sexual attraction. They vacation together alone, they text constantly, and when we first moved in together, she would still fall asleep on FaceTime with him sometimes. I said I wasn't comfortable with that, and she stopped reluctantly. I want to be very clear that I don't think she's cheating. I don't think they've slept together or are having some secret affair. But there's this emotional entanglement that I've never felt included in. And honestly, I've tried. I invited Micah to be a groomsman in our wedding. He said no, said he couldn't watch Lily get married to someone else. I've gone to dinners with the two of them, tried being friendly, tried to find common ground. But it always felt like I was intruding on something that predated me and didn't really have room for me. For a while, I accepted that this was just one of those quirks in our relationship. I love Lily. She swore up and down it was just friendship, and I wanted to trust her. But over time, the little things added up. Micah bought her a diamond necklace for her 30th birthday, more expensive than the gift I got her. When I mentioned that it made me uncomfortable, Lily said, "It's not about the cost, it's about the history." He calls her my Lily in texts, and when I brought it up, she said that's just how he's always been. When we got COVID last year, she asked if he could stay with us to help out because he knows what kind of soup she likes when she's sick. I said absolutely not. She sulked for 2 days. But the final straw was last month. We went to her cousin's wedding out of state. Micah was also invited. Her family loves him, and stayed at the same hotel. At the reception, I noticed them slow dancing together. Not like a friend thing, but hands on waists, foreheads touching. I walked over and said, "Hey, mind if I have the next dance with my wife?" Micah said, "Of course," but Lily looked annoyed. The whole car ride back to the hotel, she was quiet. That night, I asked her if she thought the way she acted with Micah was appropriate. She said I was being insecure and controlling, and that just because I don't have a best friend like she does doesn't mean I can police her friendships. I told her it wasn't just a friendship anymore, that it felt like I was sharing my wife with someone else. I told her I felt like the third wheel in my own marriage. She got mad and slept on the couch. 2 days later, I sat her down and said I couldn't keep doing this, that I wasn't going to compete for my own wife's attention. I told her that I needed boundaries. Specifically, I needed her to step back from this relationship with Micah. Not cut him off, not hate him, just put me first. She said that was unfair and that I was asking her to give up a part of herself. I said, no, I'm asking you to prioritize your husband. She said she needed time to think. That was 3 weeks ago. She moved in with her sister just for space, and I've barely heard from her. I got a text from her last Friday saying she's deeply hurt that I'd issue an ultimatum like that, and that she's not sure she can be with someone who limits her emotionally. My own friends are divided. Some say I'm right to ask for boundaries in a marriage, and that her relationship with Micah has always been inappropriate. Others think I'm being possessive, and that if I trust her, I should be okay with her having close male friends. One of my buddies, who knows both of them, said he doesn't think Micah would ever act on anything, but that he 100% thinks he's in love with Lily, and probably has been for years. I don't want to be that guy who can't handle his wife having male friends. But I also don't want to be in a marriage where I constantly feel second place to someone else. I didn't sign up for a throuple. So, Reddit, AITA for making my wife choose between our marriage and her platonic soulmate. AITA for telling my sister I won't babysit her miracle baby anymore after what she did at my anniversary dinner. I, 32F, have always had a pretty decent relationship with my sister Tara, 35F. She struggled with infertility for years and went through multiple rounds of IVF. It was heartbreaking watching her go through the ups and downs, and when she finally had her baby girl, Lily, now 18 months old, the entire family was overjoyed. Because of all she went through, Lily is understandably treated like a miracle by everyone, especially Tara. And I mean everyone, parents, extended family, even her friends. I get it. I really do. But it's reached a point where she expects the world to stop for Lily, and it's a lot. Anyway, I've helped Tara a lot since Lily was born. I work remotely and have a flexible schedule, so I often babysit while Tara runs errands, attends appointments, or just needs to nap. I've never asked for anything in return, though I've had to cancel or reschedule plans many times because she needed just one more hour. My husband, 34M, has been incredibly patient through all of this. We've been married for 5 years, together for 10, and we've always made a point to celebrate our anniversary in some meaningful way. This year, we planned a small dinner in a nice restaurant. Just the two of us, nothing extravagant. I arranged everything weeks in advance, and even reminded Tara multiple times that I wouldn't be available that evening. 2 days before the dinner, she texted me asking if I could watch Lily while she went to a friend's birthday party. I told her again, nicely, that I had plans and couldn't. She responded with, oh, right. Totally forgot. No problem. I thought that was the end of it. The night of the dinner comes. We're at the restaurant, halfway through our appetizers, and my phone starts blowing up. Multiple missed calls, then a voicemail from Tara, crying hysterically about how she's stuck and needs me to come get Lily. Apparently, she left Lily with a new sitter she found online last minute and got a bad feeling. So she picked Lily up early, but then got into a fight with her friend and needed to leave the party. She said she couldn't take Lily home because her husband, BIL, had the stomach flu and she didn't want the baby exposed. She begged me to come meet her and take Lily just for an hour or two while she figured things out. I told my husband what was going on, and he was visibly frustrated. He didn't say anything mean, but I could tell he was upset. This was supposed to be our night. After a few more calls and guilt-tripping texts, I told him I'd be quick. I'd just pick Lily up and bring her back to our house for the rest of the evening. He didn't argue, but he looked crushed. I left the restaurant, met Tara in a parking lot, and took Lily home. Tara was not in any sort of emergency state. She was still dressed for the party and casually sipping a cocktail in a to-go cup when I met her. She handed Lily over and said, I owe you big time, and sped off. By the time I got home, My husband had boxed up our food and lit some candles to salvage the night. He was sweet about it, but the mood was gone. We ate in silence, took turns feeding Lily, and watched cartoons until Tara came back at almost midnight. The next morning, I told Tara we needed to talk. I told her how upset I was that she'd put me in that position again, and that she completely disrespected my boundaries after I clearly told her I was unavailable. I explained that this was supposed to be a special night for me and my husband, and that I was tired of always being the backup plan. She looked stunned, then defensive. She said, "You don't understand what it's like being a mom. Emergencies happen." I said this wasn't an emergency. She just didn't plan ahead and expected me to drop everything for her again. She started crying and accused me of being jealous because I don't have kids and can't possibly understand what she's dealing with. That comment hit hard. My husband and I have been trying to conceive for over a year with no luck, but we haven't told anyone. I just said that was way out of line and told her I wouldn't be babysitting anymore, not unless it was truly an emergency, and not until I felt like my time and boundaries were respected. Now the whole family is involved. My mom says I'm being cruel because Tara has no one else to lean on and that Lily needs stability. My dad thinks I overreacted and that I should have just enjoyed the rest of the night with Lily since I love her like your own. Even my younger brother texted me, saying he gets where I'm coming from, but that I should be the bigger person and not punish Lily for her mom's mistakes. My husband, on the other hand, fully supports me. He's been telling me for months that Tara takes advantage of my kindness, and while he's always left it up to me, he was glad I finally set a boundary. So, AITA for telling my sister I'm done babysitting unless it's a real emergency? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for not letting my sister bring her emotional support dog to my wedding, even though she's threatening to not come. I, 29F, am getting married to my fiancé Sam, 31M, this December. We've been planning this wedding for over a year, and it's going to be a formal evening event at a historic estate we rented for the weekend. Everything is booked, and the guest list is around 120 people, mostly family and close friends. My sister Emma, 26F, has had anxiety issues for years, and about 8 months ago, she adopted a dog, some kind of doodle mix, very high energy and not well trained in my opinion. She calls him her emotional support animal, though I don't think he's officially registered or trained in any real capacity. She brings him everywhere she's allowed, stores, restaurants with patios, and to family gatherings. I understand he helps her feel calmer, but he's very excitable, barks a lot, jumps on people, and sheds like crazy. When I sent out the wedding invitations, I included a note on the website saying that the event would be pet-free, except for the ring bearer's tiny dog who was part of the ceremony for like 5 minutes and then going back to a sitter. This is because the venue has strict rules about animals inside the estate house, and also because I wanted to avoid allergies and general chaos. There will be kids and elderly guests there, and I just didn't think it would be a good environment for dogs. Emma called me the same day she got the invite and was clearly upset. She said she assumed she could bring her dog and that I should have talked to her first before making a rule like that. I told her it wasn't personal and that the venue doesn't allow pets indoors. She said he's not a pet. He's her ESA and he helps her function in social settings. I said I understood, but that it was one day and I hoped she could find a dog sitter or someone to keep him for the evening. She started crying and said I was excluding her and not respecting her mental health. I tried to stay calm and asked her to please not make this into a bigger deal than it needed to be. She hung up on me. A few days later, she texted saying she might not come to the wedding if her dog isn't allowed. I talked to my parents about it, and they are split. My mom thinks I should make an exception for Emma and let her bring the dog just this once, maybe keep him outside on a leash or let her leave early if it gets too overwhelming. My dad, on the other hand, agrees with me. He loves the dog, but says weddings are stressful enough without adding unpredictable animals into the mix. Sam supports me 100% and thinks it's a boundary we're allowed to set for our own wedding. But now my mom is hinting that Emma might really not come and that she's been struggling a lot lately, and might see this as me not caring. I've tried to offer compromises, helping her find a nearby dog-friendly Airbnb, even offering to pay for a sitter she trusts, and having a quiet room set up at the venue in case she needs a break from the crowd. But she's still saying the dog is non-negotiable. It's gotten to the point where some extended family members who heard through the grapevine are reaching out to me and suggesting I be the bigger person and not alienate my sister over a dog. But honestly, I'm getting tired of being guilted about my own wedding. It's not like I don't care about her mental health. I do. I've supported her through panic attacks. I've gone with her to therapy sessions, and I even helped her adopt the dog in the first place. But I also think there's a difference between supporting someone and letting them dictate terms that affect everyone else. Now I'm wondering, am I being too rigid? Is one dog really that big of a deal? Or am I right to set this boundary, even if it means my sister might not attend my wedding? AITA for canceling a surprise party my wife planned for me because she invited my estranged brother? I, 36M, recently celebrated my birthday, and what should have been a good day turned into an emotional mess. My wife, 34F, who I love dearly, decided to throw me a surprise birthday party. I'm not usually a big party guy, but I've appreciated her efforts in the past, and I know she just wants to make me feel loved. We've been together for 8 years, married for 4, and she's always been really close to her own siblings, so I get that family means a lot to her. But my own family situation is complicated, especially with my older brother, Derek, 39M. Derek and I were close growing up. Typical brothers, some fights, but we had each other's backs. That all changed around 10 years ago when I was engaged to my college girlfriend, Amanda. Long story short, I caught Amanda cheating with Derek. They'd apparently been seeing each other for months behind my back. I found out through a mutual friend who showed me texts and photos. It blew up spectacularly. Amanda and I split immediately, obviously. Derek tried to spin it like they were in love and couldn't help it. He even had the audacity to ask me to be understanding. I told him I never wanted to see him again. My parents begged me to forgive him over the years. Family is family and all that, but I stayed firm. The betrayal hit too deep. I've had no contact with Derek for the last decade, and honestly, it's been better for my mental health. My wife knew all of this. I told her the whole story when we started dating. She even said at the time that Derek sounded like a massive scumbag. I never got the sense she disagreed with my decision to cut him off. So imagine my shock when I walked into my surprise birthday party and saw Derek standing by the drink table. Holding a gift bag like this was just another normal day. My heart sank. I looked around and saw a bunch of old friends, coworkers, some extended family, but I couldn't focus. I walked right back out. My wife came running after me, clearly confused, asking what was wrong. I asked her why the hell Derek was there. She said, "I just thought enough time had passed. I talked to your mom, and she said maybe this would be a good time to bury the hatchet." I asked her again, point blank, did she think I would want him there? She got defensive, saying she only wanted to do something meaningful and that she thought maybe seeing him again, with everyone around, might help break the ice. I told her she didn't understand what she had done and that the party was over. We had a huge argument in the car. I told her I felt completely betrayed, that this wasn't just inviting someone I didn't like. This was someone who helped destroy one of the most painful parts of my past. I told her I wanted to be alone and drove off to stay at a friend's house that night. She texted me multiple times saying I was overreacting, that I humiliated her in front of our friends, and that I made her look like a fool. My mom got involved too, texting me that she thought this was a chance to finally move forward and that I owe it to myself to let the past go. But here's the thing. I've let it go by removing Derek from my life. I don't spend my days thinking about what he did, but I also don't need him back in my life to be at peace. I built a new life without him. I had boundaries, and my wife shattered them, thinking she knew better. When I came back 2 days later, we didn't talk much. She apologized for making a decision without consulting me, but said she still doesn't think it was that big of a deal since Derek seemed genuinely sorry and came with good intentions. I told her the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and that if she ever pulls something like that again, we'll have bigger problems than a ruined party. Now things are tense. Some of our friends are taking her side, saying it was a sweet gesture that I threw away over ancient history. Others say I was right to be angry but maybe not to cancel the entire party. I don't know. I just felt blindsided. I feel like she picked the absolute worst way to show me she cares. She went behind my back, invited the one person I've made clear I want nothing to do with, and expected me to play along like I was on some reality TV reconciliation special. So, AITA for walking out and canceling the whole party because my wife invited my estranged brother? AITA for refusing to let my stepdaughter move back in after she tried to sabotage my daughter's wedding? I, 48M, have 2 daughters, my biological daughter, Sarah, 25F, and my stepdaughter, Emily, 26F. I married my wife, Jenna, 50F, when our girls were around 10 to 11. Emily's dad isn't in the picture, so I raised her like my own. At least I thought I did. Growing up, the girls got along okay. Not best friends, but civil. Emily was a bit more introverted and private, while Sarah was always outgoing and bubbly. I did my best to treat them equally. They had the same rules, the same curfews, got the same amount spent on birthdays and holidays. But there was always a bit of jealousy from Emily's side. She once told her mom that I favored Sarah. I was shocked and hurt because I really tried not to. We talked it out and moved on, or so I thought. Fast forward to earlier this year, when Sarah got engaged to her college sweetheart, James, 27M. Everyone was thrilled, except for Emily. She gave a stiff smile and said congrats, but you could tell it was forced. Later, Jenna told me Emily was having a hard time because she had just broken up with her long-term boyfriend. I tried to be understanding. I invited Emily to be part of the planning, suggested she could be a bridesmaid. She declined. As the wedding got closer, things got weird. Sarah started getting anonymous messages about James being unfaithful, DMs from fake Instagram accounts, emails from untraceable senders, even a printed note left on her car. At first, we thought it was some crazy ex or a prank, but then someone tried to submit a tip to the wedding venue claiming the couple was hiding illegal activity and shouldn't be allowed to marry there. Eventually, Sarah hired a private investigator. I thought it was overkill, but she was losing sleep and stressed beyond belief. The PI traced the IP address of the emails back to Emily's apartment. I didn't want to believe it. I confronted Emily, expecting her to deny it and maybe say someone hacked her Wi-Fi or something. But instead, she broke down crying and confessed. She said she didn't mean to hurt Sarah. She just hated how perfect Sarah's life was. That Sarah always got everything handed to her, that she was Daddy's favorite, and this wedding was the final straw. She admitted to making fake accounts, creating the fake tip to the venue, and leaving the note. Her goal was to create doubt in Sarah's mind and slow things down because she was making a mistake. She thought she was saving her. I was livid. I told Emily she needed to leave. She lived alone in an apartment I was partially helping pay for. I'd co-signed the lease 2 years ago when she was between jobs. I told her I would no longer be financially supporting her in any way, and that what she did was cruel, manipulative, and unforgivable. Jenna begged me not to overreact. She agreed what Emily did was terrible, but said we should handle it as a family. She reminded me Emily's mental health hadn't been great lately, and that she was spiraling. I said that may be, but that doesn't give her license to wreck her sister's life. The wedding went ahead, and it was beautiful. Emily was not invited. Jenna didn't attend either, saying she couldn't celebrate while her daughter was at home suffering. Now it's been 3 months. Emily lost her job and was evicted. She called Jenna in tears, asking to move in with us. Jenna said yes without consulting me, and I put my foot down. I said absolutely not. Not after what she did. Jenna said I was being heartless, that Emily was still my daughter, and that this wasn't the time to punish her. I told her it's not punishment, it's consequences. I said Emily needs therapy and accountability, not a soft place to land, so she can avoid dealing with the mess she created. Jenna is now staying with Emily in a motel. We're not separated officially, but things are tense. She says I've abandoned both of them, and that she can't believe I'd throw away a 16-year relationship with Emily over one mistake. But to me, it wasn't a mistake. It was a campaign of deliberate sabotage against someone I love. Sarah supports my decision, obviously, but says she feels guilty that the family is fractured because of her. I told her it's not her fault. She's the victim in all of this. Some of my family thinks I'm being too harsh and that I should let Emily move in for a while so she can get back on her feet. Others think I've been more than fair and that she's lucky I haven't pursued legal action. It's killing me because I loved Emily like my own, but I can't ignore what she did or pretend she's the same person I helped raise. My marriage is on the rocks, my family is divided, and I'm questioning everything. So, AITA for refusing to let my stepdaughter move back in after what she did. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he made a huge scene at my wedding. So, here's the background. I, 32F, recently got married to my boyfriend of 5 years, Mark, 34M. We planned a pretty intimate wedding with close family and friends. My younger sister, Emma, 28F, was my maid of honor, and everything was going great until her fiancé, Dan, 30M, showed up. To give you some context, Emma and Dan have been together for about 2 years. When they first started dating, I wasn't thrilled because Dan has a bit of a reputation for being controlling and quick to anger. Emma always brushes it off, saying he's just passionate and protective. I try to give him the benefit of the doubt, but there were some red flags early on, like when he interrupted family dinners or made passive-aggressive comments. Anyway, leading up to the wedding, I tried to keep things neutral, but Dan's attitude was noticeably tense. At the rehearsal dinner, he got visibly annoyed when I asked Emma to be on time for hair and makeup the next day, which I thought was a reasonable request. He muttered under his breath, but I let it slide. Wedding day arrived, and everything was going smoothly until the ceremony finished. As we were taking pictures, Dan started whispering aggressively to Emma, who looked upset but didn't say much. Then, during the reception, he stormed over to me and Mark, very loudly complaining that Emma was being treated like a second-class guest because she wasn't getting enough attention or time with us. I was shocked because we'd made sure she had a special role, and Mark and I had spent a lot of time making sure all our guests felt included. I tried to calm him down, but he raised his voice, accusing me of being a terrible sister for ignoring Emma and not caring about her happiness. This drew attention, and some guests looked uncomfortable. Emma pulled him away eventually, but the damage was done. Later that night, he posted a passive-aggressive rant on social media about family drama and how some people don't know how to treat their own. Fast forward a few days, and Emma tells me Dan needs a place to stay temporarily because their apartment is being fumigated. She asks if he can stay with me and Mark for a few days. Mark is hesitant, but I say yes because I want to be supportive. However, once Dan moves in, he starts acting entitled. He makes snide remarks about how we keep invading his space, criticizes how I run my household, and generally makes the atmosphere tense. One evening, he demanded I let him throw a party at our place, since he's a guest, despite me telling him our home isn't a venue for his gatherings. The breaking point came when he invited some friends over without asking. They stayed late, were loud, and left a mess. When I confronted him, he exploded, saying I'm controlling and not family. I told him that he's a guest and needs to respect our rules or find somewhere else to stay. He accused me of being petty and controlling, which led to a huge argument where he threatened to never speak to Emma again if I didn't back off. Emma begged me to make it work for her sake, but after a week of this tension, Mark and I told Dan he needed to find another place. Emma was furious and said I was being unreasonable and selfish. My parents sided with Emma, calling me cold and unsisterly. Even some friends think I should have been more accommodating. Now, Emma is barely talking to me, and Dan keeps posting things online about how I ruined their relationship. I'm feeling torn because I want to support my sister, but I also don't want to tolerate someone who disrespects my home and family. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after he made a scene at my wedding and caused problems while staying with us. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her new fiancé. This is going to be a bit long, but I want to lay out all the details clearly. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Emily, 26F. We were really close growing up, almost inseparable, but things have been strained for the past couple of years. The root of the tension is Emily's fiancé, Mark, 31M. I don't want to get too detailed about our childhood or family background, but suffice it to say that we had a fairly normal upbringing, and I was always protective of her. Emily started dating Mark about a year and a half ago. At first, I was hopeful that he was a good guy since she seemed happy, but as time went on, I began to have serious reservations. It's important to note that I'm not usually judgmental or intrusive about people's relationships. I try to stay out of it unless there's something obviously harmful happening. Mark has a reputation, or at least from what I gathered from mutual friends and some unfortunate incidents I witnessed myself, for being manipulative and disrespectful. When Emily introduced him to our family, he seemed charming and well-mannered, but over time, his true colors came out. For example, at a family barbecue last summer, I overheard Mark loudly criticizing Emily in front of everyone about her career choices, calling her too sensitive and implying she was wasting her potential. Emily brushed it off, but I could see she was hurt. There have also been subtle digs at me and other family members when they're alone with him. He tends to undermine people in ways that make you doubt yourself. I noticed that Emily started becoming more withdrawn and anxious after they got serious. I tried talking to her about my concerns multiple times, always very carefully and from a place of love. I never called Mark names or made accusations. I told Emily I was worried about how he treated her, that I wanted her to be happy and safe. But she always defended him vehemently and accused me of being jealous or trying to sabotage her relationship. It felt like hitting a wall. Fast forward to 6 months ago when Emily announced they were engaged. The wedding planning began, and I was invited to be one of her bridesmaids. I tried to put my misgivings aside, but Mark's behavior only seemed to get worse. During one of the planning meetings with the bridal party, Mark openly criticized the color scheme and suggested replacing some of Emily's ideas with his own, disregarding the fact that it was her wedding. When I gently challenged him, he got defensive and told me to mind my own business. The breaking point came a few weeks ago. Emily and Mark came over for dinner at my place with some mutual friends. During the evening, Mark started making sarcastic comments about my job and lifestyle in front of everyone, saying things like, "Must be nice to have such a relaxed career," and "No wonder you're still single." Everyone was uncomfortable, but I tried to laugh it off. Later, when Emily and I were alone, she said I was overreacting and accused me of embarrassing her in him. A few days after that, Emily told me that Mark had asked her to set some boundaries with me because he felt I was being too intrusive and negative about their relationship. I responded that I only wanted what was best for her and that if that meant not seeing me, she should say so. She didn't answer. Last week, Emily formally invited me to the wedding, and I declined. I told her honestly that I couldn't be part of a day that celebrated her relationship with someone who disrespects and hurts her, and that I needed to step back for my own well-being. Emily was furious. She accused me of trying to control her life and told me I was cutting family ties over a boyfriend. She said I was being selfish and dramatic, and she hasn't spoken to me since. Our parents are caught in the middle. They think I'm overreacting and say I should put aside my personal feelings for the sake of family. My closest friends support my decision, saying I have the right to protect myself and not enable toxic behavior. I don't want to ruin my relationship with Emily, but I also don't want to be around Mark or pretend everything is fine. I've offered to meet with Emily alone to talk, but she hasn't responded. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? Or should I put my feelings aside for the sake of family peace? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior, and now the family is tearing me apart? So, this is going to be a long one because the whole situation has been unfolding for over a year now, and it's caused a massive rift in my family. I'm still trying to make sense of everything, and I genuinely want to know if I'm the asshole here or if I'm justified in my stance. I, 29F, have a sister, 32F, who has been dating her fiancé, Mark, 35M, for about 2 years. They got engaged last summer, and the wedding is planned for early next year. My sister and I were always close growing up, and I thought that would continue into adulthood, but things have changed dramatically since Mark entered the picture. From the beginning, I wasn't crazy about Mark. He came across as arrogant and controlling. I thought maybe I was just being judgmental, but over time, I started noticing little things that made me uncomfortable. At first, it was stuff like the way he talked over my sister during conversations or made dismissive comments about her career aspirations. Then it escalated to more concerning behaviors. Last Christmas, I witnessed a really upsetting interaction. My sister had been really excited about a promotion she got at work, and when she tried to share the news with Mark, he basically brushed it off and told her she should be focusing more on wedding planning. When I chimed in to congratulate her, Mark snapped at me, saying I was interfering and that I didn't understand their priorities. It felt like he was trying to isolate her from anyone who wasn't on his team. Over the next few months, I tried to keep my distance but still be supportive. My sister seemed happy, so I tried to push my concerns aside. But then things took a turn for the worse. I started hearing from mutual friends that Mark was being verbally abusive to my sister. At first, I didn't want to believe it. But then my sister confided in me during a rare moment alone that Mark had been emotionally manipulative and sometimes aggressive. She begged me not to say anything to the rest of the family because she was scared of how they'd react and because she was worried about what Mark might do if he found out. She said she was stuck and didn't know how to get out of the relationship without losing everyone she loved. It broke my heart. I wanted to help, but I also knew this was a delicate situation. So I started documenting what my sister told me, just in case. I also reached out to a domestic abuse counselor to get advice on how to support my sister without pushing her away. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. The family had a big gathering to celebrate my sister and Mark's engagement. I went because I wanted to try and keep the peace. But during the party, Mark made a humiliating comment about my sister in front of everyone. Something about how she wasn't pulling her weight in wedding planning and how she was lucky he was putting up with her. Everyone was quiet. It was painfully awkward. I couldn't hold back and told Mark he had no right to talk to my sister that way, especially in front of everyone. He laughed it off and said I was overreacting and trying to cause drama. The rest of the family got involved, and it quickly turned into a mess with people taking sides. My sister surprisingly told me later that night that she was tired of the fighting and wanted me to back off for her sake. She said she was planning on going through with the wedding no matter what. That really hurt, but I told her I'd respect her decision, even if I disagreed. Then came the final straw. A few days ago, I was invited to the rehearsal dinner. I was hesitant, but thought maybe things could be okay if I tried. During the dinner, Mark got drunk and started making passive-aggressive remarks toward me and some other family members who were questioning his behavior. When I stood up and told him to stop disrespecting everyone, he got hostile and started yelling. My sister didn't defend me. Instead, she told me to leave because I was ruining everything. I left feeling crushed and confused. Since then, my entire family has been calling and texting me nonstop, saying I'm the problem, that I'm selfish for not supporting the wedding, and that I'm driving a wedge between my sister and the rest of the family. I told them I'm not going to attend the wedding because I refuse to celebrate a marriage that's built on manipulation and emotional abuse. They say I'm overstepping and that my sister is an adult who can make her own decisions. They accuse me of trying to sabotage her happiness and Mark's reputation. Honestly, I feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place. I want to support my sister and be there for her, but I can't pretend everything is fine when it clearly isn't. I'm worried that if I go to the wedding, it will legitimize Mark's behavior and potentially hurt my sister even more in the long run. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior and standing by my concerns even though my family thinks I'm a villain? Or should I just swallow my pride and go for the sake of family peace? AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she accused me of stealing her thunder over a surprise engagement party? This whole situation has spiraled out of control, and I honestly don't know if I'm the asshole or if my sister is just being unreasonable. I'll try to break it down as clearly as I can. I, 32F, have a sister, Lisa, 29F, who's always been a bit dramatic and a huge attention seeker. Growing up, she was definitely the golden child, and while I never really minded, things got complicated as we got older. We have a pretty decent relationship overall, but some things never change. A few months ago, I started dating someone seriously. His name is Mark, and we've been together about a year now. I really like him, and we've talked about getting engaged eventually, but I wasn't in any rush. A couple weeks ago, Mark surprised me with a proposal. I was over the moon, but we kept it low-key because I wanted to tell my family in person before posting anything on social media or planning anything big. Around the same time, Lisa was dating someone new and announced they were engaged. She was super excited and immediately started talking about wedding plans. She wanted something extravagant and the event of the year. She kept hinting to everyone that her wedding would be the big family celebration. And honestly, I thought that was fine. Everyone deserves their moment. Now here's where things get messy. A few days after my engagement, Lisa told me she was throwing me a surprise engagement party. I thought that was sweet, but was a little hesitant because I like more intimate gatherings. Still, I didn't want to hurt her feelings, so I agreed. The party was last weekend, and everything started fine. I was surrounded by friends and family, and Lisa was beaming with pride, playing the perfect host. But halfway through, it became clear that the party wasn't about me. It was about her. She kept interrupting my conversations, loudly talking about how this is her moment too, and how she deserved to share the spotlight. It felt awkward, but I tried to brush it off. Then came the moment that really hurt me. Lisa grabbed the microphone and made a long speech where she compared her upcoming wedding to my engagement, basically saying that her wedding would be the real celebration and that my engagement was just a stepping stone. She ended the speech by saying that she was taking over the family events from now on and that I should get used to sharing the stage. I was stunned. The party quickly shifted from a celebration of my engagement to a sort of Lisa's takeover event. A few people made uncomfortable jokes about how Lisa was stealing the thunder, and I just felt humiliated. After the party, I told Lisa how hurt I was. I said the party felt less like a celebration for me and more like a show about her, and that her speech crossed a line. She responded by accusing me of being too sensitive and said I was jealous of her. She even said I was trying to steal her thunder by getting engaged so close to her wedding planning. That really pissed me off. I never tried to upstage her. My engagement just happened naturally. And I feel like she's been acting like I owe her the spotlight when I haven't done anything wrong. Because of this, I told her I wouldn't be hosting or helping with her wedding at all. She had originally asked me to host the rehearsal dinner at my place and to help with some planning since we live nearby and I have experience with events. I said no, I'm not going to be part of a wedding that's turning into a competition. Now the rest of the family is divided. Some say I'm being petty and should just support Lisa's wedding, but others say Lisa's behavior was out of line and I have every right to say no. I'm honestly torn because I don't want to ruin my relationship with my sister, but I also don't want to be treated like a backup act. Am I the asshole for refusing to host her wedding events after she accused me of stealing her thunder at my own engagement party? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior toward my kids? This has been weighing on me for months, and I've tried to find ways to handle it without causing a huge family rift, but I'm at my wit's end. I'm still conflicted, but I feel like I need an outside perspective on this, so here goes. I, 35F, have 2 kids, ages 7 and 9. My sister, Emma, 32F, got engaged about a year ago. I was genuinely happy for her when she got engaged to Jake, 33M. For a while, things seemed fine, and I tried to build a relationship with him for Emma's sake. But soon, I started noticing little things that made me uncomfortable, especially when Jake was around my kids. At first, I thought I was overreacting or maybe just sensitive. But over time, the incidents kept piling up. The first major red flag was about 6 months ago when Jake came over for a family dinner. My son, Ethan, was showing him a drawing he made, and Jake made a dismissive comment like, "Why are you wasting time on this? You should focus on things that matter." My son was hurt, but didn't say anything. It struck me as unnecessarily harsh and belittling. Another time, Jake made a sarcastic remark about my daughter's choice of clothes. She had picked out a colorful dress for a family outing, and Jake said something like, "That's a lot of pink for someone who's supposed to be growing out of childish things." My daughter is very sensitive, and I could see she was upset. What hurt me the most was when he corrected my parenting in front of my kids and family. We were all at a barbecue, and Ethan was struggling to open a bottle of soda. Jake loudly told him, "Just give up, you're not strong enough for that." I stepped in and told Jake that wasn't a nice thing to say, but he brushed it off and laughed it off like it was a joke. After that, I started pulling my kids back from situations where Jake was around. I spoke to Emma privately about my concerns, hoping she'd see the problem and talk to him. But Emma got defensive and accused me of being jealous and trying to cause trouble. She said Jake's just blunt and that I was overprotective. It didn't stop. Over time, Jake's comments became more pointed. He criticized my kids for acting spoiled and told them they needed to toughen up. One time, he grabbed Ethan's tablet away because he thought Ethan was spending too much time being lazy. My son cried and said Jake scared him. I felt disrespected as a parent and deeply worried about how Jake's behavior was affecting my kids emotionally. Emma dismissed these concerns repeatedly, saying I was exaggerating and that I should just get along. A couple of weeks ago, Emma announced that their wedding was happening in 2 months. She invited me and the kids. Naturally, I started thinking about how to handle it, hoping Jake might have changed. I asked Emma again if she'd spoken to Jake about his attitude toward the kids, and she said yes, but she didn't see any problem. At this point, I made a decision. I told Emma I wouldn't be attending the wedding if Jake was going to be there acting the same way. She was furious and said I was being unreasonable, selfish, and threatening to ruin her big day. She also started spreading the story to other family members, framing me as the villain who's trying to control her life and breaking up the family. Some relatives took her side, some were confused, and a few supported me quietly. Emma and I haven't spoken much since. I don't want to force my kids to be around someone who belittles them, and I don't want to support a marriage where I feel my sister is turning a blind eye to harmful behavior. On the other hand, I understand weddings are big moments, and my absence will be noticed and may cause tension. I do love Emma, and I don't want to lose her over this, but I can't just pretend Jake's behavior is okay. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior toward my kids? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.